I first met DeAnn when I was in college, and we went to the University of Nebraska at Omaha. She was in a sorority, I was in a fraternity.
But we were very good friends for a couple of years before we started dating. In fact, one of my friends, the year before we started dating, told me that she could envision that Carl and I would start dating at some point. And I looked at her and I thought, that will never happen, because I didn't think anything of Carl as being a date. I thought of him as a friend and that, but she was right. We started dating a year later.
She asked me out. She asked me out. That's always been kind of good, because I always have that on her.
He always kidded me in class that I owed him a dinner, so when I asked him to the dinner dance, I said, hey, I'll pay my bets off about owing you a dinner if you go to this dance with me. I believe that the dance was at the airport. It was a restaurant at the airport. We went with my sorority, and we had a really good time.
That was the first date. She was a good kisser too, I remember that. I didn't rush into things, so when we dated, when we were in school, we got to know each other very well. We went on a lot of dates before we were married, because we dated for 3 years plus, probably.
I can't tell you the moment when I knew that Carl was the one that I wanted to marry. It just seemed to naturally progress to the stage where we talked about getting married. I knew probably for a few months before he proposed to me that we were thinking about getting married and probably would end up there. It just seemed natural. It just seemed to progress. I always enjoyed being around him, and it just naturally developed into, a very serious relationship.
She's very beautiful, she's very talented, she's very smart, fun to be with. I mean, she has all those qualities, but when things were harder and tougher, she was always there too. And so I guess that was the quality that I saw in her. She has a big heart, and when you put all that together, I said, this is who I would be very honored to be married to. And so that's kind of what I benchmark it against and thought about, and that's why I thought that DeAnn was the one for me. So
when I was studying for my last final, my last semester at UNO,
well, this one I'm going to fail on.
I was preparing for the final in the hardest class that I had that semester, and it was the night before the final, and Carl called and he wanted to go out that night. I
had in my mind, we're going to do it this week, this weekend.
I explained to him that I'm studying for my final and I can't go out that night. I really need to study for this final.
We were going to go out, she couldn't go out. And I had it in my mind, I'm going to propose to her, and it's like, why can't you go out? We'll just need a few minutes to go out.
Well, he kept talking to me on the phone.
She's always ready for her tests and finals, so it's like, I don't need this much time to go out, and so we can go out. Anyway, I'm pressing her to go out.
And then he finally said,
DeAnn, I want to ask you to get married. And so I did it on the phone, which is not ideal.
Of course, I didn't really get a lot of studying done after he told me that.
I would advise anybody else not to do it that way, because I hear about that, and I will hear that the rest of my life, that I did it that way.
And so I made him do it again.
So I did it again in person with her, and I got on my knee and did it.
And we went out to dinner, and he proposed to me at dinner. It was very nice.
Getting ready for the wedding day, I was more nervous we had a prenuptial dinner right before it. I was more nervous at that than I was the wedding. I don't know why that was the case, but and I remember on that one, DeAnn and I, we were driving to meet our friends and that at this prenuptial dinner. The restaurant is actually gone now. It's the old Venice Inn, and I remember making a turn down, and there's some small streets down there, and I actually, for a minute, was driving on the wrong side of the road. Nobody else was there, but at DeAnn, I said, hey, you're on the wrong side of the road. And it's like, oh yeah, my mind was elsewhere on that. But when it came to the wedding day and that, I didn't sleep well that night. before, and it was more anticipation for the wedding than anything, and just nervous getting. But once I wasn't really worried when it came to the wedding, or I wasn't nervous.
Getting ready for the wedding, I wasn't real nervous about it. I was very comfortable with getting married. I was surprised. One of my aunts, whose husband was really sick, surprised me. She flew into town at the very last minute and walked into the church about the time I was getting ready to walk down the aisle. In fact, she jokes that she helped walk me down the aisle. I remember walking down the aisle and being full of a big smile as I saw Carl standing at the end of the aisle. After the ceremony, we had a receiving line, and my grandfather's brother gave me a hug, and he gave me a second hug and said it was for my grandpa that had died just a few months before the wedding.
The priest was Father Tom Bowens. It was actually his second wedding. He was actually more nervous than I was. It seemed like, and I just told him not to worry so much. He's actually our pastor now at the church that we go to now.
After the reception, we didn't tell anyone, but we snuck back to our house and just stayed there the night. We didn't get a hotel room or anything. And then the next day, everyone came over, family came over, and we unwrapped all of our presents. It was just a fun, relaxing day in our new house that we were going to live in together and start our life. The one thing that I do remember, it's the only time it ever happened, and it hasn't happened again, but I made Carl breakfast the day after we got married, and I burnt it. And he is such a nice person. He sat there and ate it and said it was delicious, but it was burnt.
I tell people when they hear the number, I sometimes joke that I was born married. It's hard to remember things before I was married to DeAnn, but we'll be married 31 years this August.
It's flown by fast. I can't believe it's been that many years. It seems like yesterday that we just started on this journey together. My favorite thing about Carl is he's a very kind, loving person, and he's a wonderful person to be around. I couldn't have married a better person in the world.
There's a kind of a saying or a poem that's called Footprints, and I do believe that the good Lord puts people that will assist you in life, and there are angels here on life, and DeAnn's one of my angels.